My name is David, and I used to think loyalty was enough to keep a marriage alive. I gave my wife 21 years, my heart, my time, my future. In return, she gave herself to other men and expected me to smile through it. I stayed silent for the sake of our daughters, until one day, I found out they knew too. That was the moment everything changed. What followed was betrayal, humiliation, and a quiet, calculated revenge she never saw coming. You want to know how the quiet husband finally walked away? Let me take you back to where it all began. I've never been anyone special. Not in the eyes of my family, anyway. I came into this world under circumstances people whisper about, but never say out loud. I was the oops child, the one who wasn't supposed to be here. Born into a broken home, surrounded by bitterness, and blamed for a marriage that was already crumbling long before I could walk. My father left when I was 5 years old. Just packed his things one morning and never looked back. No goodbye, no explanation. Just gone. The last image I have of him is his shadow on the porch, cast by the morning sun as he walked away. After that, his name became taboo in the house. If I ever asked about him, my mother's lips would tighten and her eyes would go cold. She always said he ran off because he couldn't handle being a father. But deep down, even at that young age, I felt the truth was more complicated. Or maybe I just wanted it to be. My mother, Margaret, wasn't the nurturing type. She was cold, sharp, and always tired of me. She never hugged me. Not once. Not even when I brought home straight A's, or when I got sick and cried from the fever. There was no comfort, no warmth. Just a never-ending list of what I hadn't done right. She had help in making my life miserable. My 2 older sisters, Patricia and Claire, 13 and 10 years older than me, they treated me like a parasite. Patricia was especially cruel. She'd pinch me under the dinner table when no one was looking or blame me when things went missing. Claire was more subtle. She ignored me entirely, as if I were a ghost floating through the house. The worst part? I wanted them to love me. I needed them to. But no matter how hard I tried, being quiet, being helpful, staying out of their way, it was never enough. I was a reminder of something they all wanted to forget. At school, it wasn't much better. I was the quiet, awkward kid who wore hand-me-downs that didn't quite fit. The bullies saw me as easy prey, and I let them. I didn't know how to fight back. I didn't think I was worth fighting for. But there was one thing I could do: study. Books didn't yell at me. Equations didn't hit me when no one was looking. I found a kind of peace in math, in science, in building things that didn't fall apart like my home life had. By the time I was 16, I was winning academic awards no one in my family even bothered to attend. And still, I craved one thing more than all the certificates and medals: acceptance. A simple pat on the back. A "well done, son." Something, anything, to make me feel seen. But it never came. When I turned 18, I packed my things and left for university in South London. I didn't cry. I didn't look back. My mother didn't even walk me to the door. Claire waved a disinterested hand. Patricia didn't show up at all. That train ride to Kingston University was the first time in my life I felt free. Free from the cold glances, the heavy silences, the undercurrent of resentment that poisoned every room in that house. I remember looking out the window at the passing fields and thinking, this is my chance. My real beginning. I was determined to make something of myself. I enrolled in a master's program for mechanical engineering and design. It was tough, long nights, impossible deadlines, but I loved it. I felt purpose for the first time. And then, I saw her. She was everything I wasn't. Outgoing, confident, beautiful. Her name was Emily. She walked into the student union like she owned the place. Brown hair that danced in the light, eyes that saw right through you, and a laugh that could cut through any room. I told myself she'd never notice someone like me. And yet, she did. But that's a story for another part. What matters now is this. I spent the first 21 years of my life learning how to survive silence, shame, and being invisible. And I swore to myself that I would never end up like my father. I would never run from my family, never walk away. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't know, is that one day, I'd be forced to choose between breaking that promise or breaking myself completely. And when the time came, I would finally understand why my father never looked back. Emily was like sunlight in a life full of shadows. I remember the first time I saw her, standing by the university cafe window, bathed in the soft afternoon glow. She wore a red sweater, her hair tied loosely, and she laughed like nothing in the world could ever touch her. There was something untouchable about her. Untouchable, yet magnetic. I stood there, paralyzed, clutching my books like a kid on the first day of school. She didn't even notice me. And why would she? I was invisible in places like that. Quiet. Average. The kind of guy who faded into the background while others stole the spotlight. Emily was the kind of woman men wrote songs about. Confident, clever, and beautiful in that effortless way that made heads turn the moment she entered a room. I was in the middle of my master's in mechanical engineering. She was finishing her final year in creative writing. She wrote poems. I built things. We were different universes. Still, I watched her from afar. Not in a creepy way. I just couldn't help it. She had a presence, a gravity. Guys flirted with her constantly. Loud, flashy types who never looked nervous or second-guessed a word they said. I assumed she liked those kinds of men. I figured I had no chance. But fate has a strange way of throwing you off balance. One evening, at a friend's house party, when I didn't even want to attend, I found myself sitting quietly on the couch, nursing a warm beer, when a girl from Emily's circle plopped down next to me. Her name was Jess, I think. She started chatting, probably out of pity, or maybe she found my silence amusing. After a few minutes, Emily joined us. She laughed at one of my dry comments and looked surprised, like she hadn't expected me to be funny. That was the moment. The spark. From there, things moved faster than I could process. A few study sessions. Late-night chats about her writing, about my projects. One day, I found the courage to ask her out. She said yes. Just like that. I couldn't believe it. We were an odd pair. Her, vibrant and full of life, and me, reserved and observant. But somehow it worked. Or so I thought. Emily liked to talk, and I liked to listen. She'd tell me stories, mostly dramatic ones, about her high school exes, her overbearing parents, or her sister, Brooke, who always got what she wanted. I'd sit there, watching her eyes light up as she spoke. I soaked it all in. I was falling for her fast. And when she kissed me for the first time, under a flickering streetlight after a night out, I felt something crack open inside me. Something I didn't know was still buried under all those years of silence. Emily took my virginity a few weeks later. I didn't tell her it was my first time. Didn't want to seem inexperienced. But I think she knew. And in a strange way, I think she liked that. She liked being in control. At first, everything was beautiful. She'd hold my hand in public, whisper things in my ear that made me blush. I felt wanted. For the first time in my life, I felt wanted. But then, 6 months in, the cracks began to show. Whispers. Hints. A smirk from a classmate. Someone mentioned seeing her out with another guy. I laughed it off, told myself they were jealous or mistaken. But deep down, a cold pit settled in my stomach. I asked her about it once, casually. She just laughed, rolled her eyes, and kissed me. "Don't be silly, babe," she said. "You're the only one." But doubts have a way of burrowing in. And Emily, well, she had a temper. If she didn't get her way, she'd make a scene. Once, she screamed at me in a cafe because I didn't like the movie she wanted to watch. Everyone stared. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. Still, I stayed. Because I loved her. I loved her in a way that felt dangerous. Addictive. Like a man crawling through the desert who suddenly finds water and doesn't care if it's poisoned. My friends noticed. They told me to be careful. That she was spoiled, manipulative. That she didn't treat me right. But I didn't listen. I couldn't. I needed her too much. After graduation, we moved in together in a small town near Southampton. It was her idea. She wanted to be close to her family, especially her sister, Brooke, who'd recently had a baby. I didn't have anyone to stay near, so I agreed. We found jobs. She dabbled in freelance writing. I landed a position at a local engineering firm. Life moved on. We got married a year later. It was a modest ceremony. Emily wore white and cried during the vows. I believed every word she said. And when our first daughter, Lily, was born, I remember holding her in my arms and thinking, this is it. I've finally built something real. A family. A future. But looking back now, that was just the beginning of the illusion. Life has a funny way of convincing you everything's okay, right before it rips the ground out from under you. The first few years of marriage with Emily were manageable. We had Lily, then Grace 2 years later. Holding my daughters, I felt hope bloom inside me again. A fragile thing, but alive. I poured myself into being a good husband, a better father. I wasn't going to fail like my dad did. I was going to stay, no matter what. Emily seemed to enjoy motherhood. At first, she liked posting cute baby pictures online, liked the compliments, the attention. She threw herself into birthday parties and coordinated outfits, the perfect mom on the outside. But behind closed doors, it was different. She grew restless, irritable, like being a mother wasn't enough. She stopped sleeping in our bed some nights, claiming exhaustion. She started going out more, girls' nights, book clubs, spa days. I didn't question it. I should have. But every time I tried, she'd brush me off with a sweet smile or a scolding glare, depending on her mood. I told myself she was just decompressing. Being a stay-at-home mom was hard, right? I believed what I needed to believe. Meanwhile, I worked. I worked a lot. I climbed my way up at Walker Engineering, eventually securing a management role. The salary was good. Bonuses helped us move into a beautiful 5-bedroom home just outside Southampton. Emily had insisted on it. She said our house didn't reflect who we were now. She said appearances mattered, especially for the girls. It didn't feel like home to me, but I gave in, like I always did. She handled nothing when it came to bills or finances. That was all me. I paid the mortgage, kept the lights on, covered school costs, dance classes, doctor visits, you name it. I even opened a separate savings account, just in case. Something inside me, some quiet instinct, whispered that I might need it one day. That was the only secret I ever kept from her. Then came 2008. The recession hit us hard. Work dried up. Contracts disappeared. Everyone at the company was stretched thin, including me. I was working 12-hour days, skipping meals, skipping sleep, trying to keep our lives intact. I barely noticed Emily slipping further and further away. Until I did. It started with a scent, men's cologne that didn't belong to me lingering in the bedroom. Then the late-night calls she'd rush to take in the bathroom with the door closed. The sudden interest in dressing up for her walks. At first, I told myself I was paranoid, stressed, but suspicion sank in like rot. Then, one Saturday afternoon, while Grace was at a friend's house and Lily was upstairs, I found her laptop open on the dining table. I wasn't snooping. Not really. I just noticed the screen was lit up. A message thread. Her and someone named Henry W. My heart slammed against my ribs. I scrolled. They weren't just messages. They were memories. Conversations dripping with innuendo, flirtation, photos. She had been seeing someone else. Not just emotionally. Physically. Intimately. Henry Walker. My coworker. My junior. My boss's nephew. I sat down, unable to breathe. I felt like someone had reached inside my chest and torn out every ounce of pride I had left. I'd worked with Henry for over 5 years. Shown him respect. Mentored him at one point. And all this time, he'd been sleeping with my wife. When I confronted Emily, she didn't deny it. She laughed, said I was overreacting, that it wasn't emotional, just a bit of fun, that women have needs too. I asked her how long. She shrugged. I asked her if it was serious. She smiled cruelly. Only if you make it into something. She looked me dead in the eyes and told me that if I couldn't handle it, I could leave. Otherwise, I could stay, raise the girls, keep the house, be her husband, publicly. But in private, she'd do as she pleased. I stood there stunned. 20 years of loyalty, of working myself into the ground. And she gave me an ultimatum. Play along or get out. The next day at work, I walked past Henry in the break room. He gave me a smug grin and asked, "Rough morning?" I said nothing. But in that moment, I felt something in me snap. Not with rage, but with clarity. I wasn't just being betrayed. I was being mocked. Publicly. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was a joke. And something inside me, something quiet, buried deep for decades, finally woke up. That's when I started planning. Not for revenge. Not yet. For freedom. Sometimes, the truth doesn't arrive with a bang. Sometimes, it creeps in like a draft under a closed door, unnoticed at first, until it chills you to the bone. It was a rainy Sunday in September when everything finally cracked. Grace had just left for university. Lily was already in her second year. For the first time in almost 2 decades, the house was quiet. No thumping footsteps, no slammed doors, no midnight snack runs echoing from the kitchen. Just Emily and me, 2 strangers who used to share a life. That day, I drove Grace to her new apartment near campus. Lily was already there, helping her unpack, rearranging furniture, laughing about the shared bathroom and the terrible view. I stood in the doorway, half smiling, feeling both proud and unbearably hollow. Then, just as I turned to leave, Grace stopped me. "Dad," she said, "can I ask you something?" I paused, my hand still on the doorframe. "Why are you still with Mom?" The question hit harder than I expected. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. She hesitated. Her eyes dropped to the floor. "I know about Henry. Everyone does." It felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. "She's been with him for a while," she continued, her voice trembling. "And not just him." I didn't want to believe it, but I heard things. Lily did too. Mom's friends talk. Loudly. I stared at her. My sweet, quiet Grace. The one who never raised her voice, never caused trouble. She was crying. "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't know if I should tell you, but it's not fair. You don't deserve this." I hugged her. Tight. But I didn't say a word. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to face it. Not completely. Not yet. That drive home was the longest of my life. I replayed every moment of the last few years. Every lie. Every smirk from Henry. Every strange look from my colleagues. It wasn't just infidelity. It was public humiliation. I was the butt of office jokes. The weak husband with the wife who couldn't stay faithful. And worst of all, my own children saw it. When I got home, Emily was in the kitchen, pouring wine and flipping through a magazine like nothing had happened. She looked up and smiled, all fake sweetness. "How was the drop-off?" she asked, her voice light. I didn't answer. I sat down at the table and looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I once loved more than anything. The woman who had slowly chipped away at my self-worth for years. "What's going on between you and Henry?" I asked, my voice steady. She didn't flinch. "Oh, that?" she said with a laugh. "Come on, David. Don't be dramatic." "Is it true?" I pressed. "Grace knows. So does Lily." She shrugged. "So what if it is?" I blinked. She set her wine glass down and folded her arms. "You've always been a good provider," she said. "I respect that. You're reliable, David. But you're not exciting. Not passionate. You're predictable. And I have needs." "Needs?" I asked, trying to keep the anger from my voice. She leaned in, lowering her tone as if she were explaining something simple to a child. "I need to feel desired. Alive. You can't give me that. You never could." I stared at her in disbelief. "So you've been sleeping with him behind my back?" I said. "And what? Just expect me to go along with it?" She raised an eyebrow. "Not just him." Those 3 words sliced through me like a blade. I stood up, trembling. "And what if I did the same?" I asked. She laughed, actually laughed in my face. "You? With another woman? Please. You'd be lucky to get a date, David." She stepped closer, her voice dropping into a venomous whisper. "This works because I let it work. You have the house, the kids. You have a good life, because of me. Don't ruin it." She turned, picked up her wine again, and walked out of the room, humming as she went. Like none of it mattered. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat alone in my study, staring at our wedding photo. The same one that used to sit proudly in our hallway. Emily, radiant in white. Me, hopeful and blind. I realized then that the man in that photo didn't exist anymore. He had died slowly, over years of sacrifice, silence, and humiliation. All that remained was someone ready to finally stand up, not for revenge, but for something far more dangerous. Self-respect. It's strange how calm you can feel when everything inside you is burning. The night after Emily confirmed her betrayal, I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I didn't throw anything or storm out the door like in the movies. I simply sat there, still, silent, as if my soul had left my body and was standing off to the side, watching. She had gone to bed early, humming as she climbed the stairs, humming like a woman without a care in the world. I stayed in my study, staring into the dim glow of my desk lamp, the same one I'd used to pay bills, plan vacations, research schools for our girls. Now, it became the command center for something else entirely. I was done playing the fool, done being her background character. And so, that night, I started planning. First, I pulled out the old leather-bound notebook I kept locked in my filing cabinet. It was filled with numbers, bank accounts, bonuses, financial statements. I flipped to the section marked Savings, Private. That account had been growing slowly, quietly, for over a decade. Every bonus, every extra payment, every bit of overtime pay she never asked about. I had stashed it away, like a man anticipating a storm. I checked the balance. Over $200,000. Good. That would be my lifeline. Next came the house. The mortgage was in my name. I made sure of that when we bought it, under the guise of simplifying paperwork. Emily never paid attention to the details, never once asked to see a bank statement. I smiled, the first genuine smile in weeks. I transferred the property title to a shell company my friend Toby and I had set up years ago for a failed side project. Back then, we had dreamed of building eco-friendly housing. That dream never happened, but the company still existed. It had no assets, no liabilities until now. By 2 a.m., the paperwork was filed. The house, our beautiful, 5-bedroom symbol of her status, was no longer hers. She wouldn't know. Not yet. I closed my laptop and walked to our bedroom door. I could hear her light snore, the occasional rustle of sheets. She slept peacefully while my world crumbled. I stood there for a long time, listening. Then I turned away and went back downstairs. There was still more to do. The next day, I scheduled a meeting with our bank. I told them I wanted to close the joint account due to some restructuring. The clerk barely blinked. Within 30 minutes, every cent was moved to my private account. Emily wouldn't notice, not until her next shopping spree declined. At lunch, I stopped by an electronics store, picked up 2 digital voice recorders, a new external hard drive, and a fresh laptop. Back at work, I waited until my office was empty, then started downloading everything: my project designs, proprietary software blueprints, client contacts. I had built the most energy-efficient hydraulic system our company had ever sold. I was the business, and now I was taking it with me. That night, she didn't even ask where I'd been. She was on the phone, giggling with someone. I didn't want to know who. When I walked in, she waved dismissively, mouthing, "Not now." Fine. I went upstairs, opened our closet, and stared at her designer handbags, the ones I paid for. The dresses she never wore twice. The shoes that cost more than our monthly grocery bills. Soon, they'd all be gone. But not yet. I had to wait. Watch. Let her believe she still had control. That weekend, I told her I was thinking of upgrading her car. A new model, something more luxurious. Her eyes lit up like a child's on Christmas morning. "You'd do that for me?" she asked. I smiled. Of course. I made an appointment with the dealership to trade in her Range Rover. Told them the situation. They were more than happy to take it off my hands. Barely used. High demand. Easy profit. I even grabbed a 2017 brochure on the way out and left it on the kitchen table like a gift. She flipped through it that night, humming again, excited, dreaming. She had no idea it was the beginning of the end. That night, as I lay in the guest room, my new sanctuary, I stared at the ceiling, heart racing, mind calm. I wasn't just walking away from my marriage. I was dismantling it, piece by piece, silently, efficiently, like the engineer I was trained to be. She thought I was weak, predictable, trapped. She had no idea what I was capable of, but she would, very soon. The day I burned my wedding photo, the sky was a perfect, cloudless blue. It should have felt wrong, destroying a piece of my past under such a calm sky, but it didn't. It felt necessary, like a surgeon removing a tumor. I found the box in the attic, buried beneath old baby clothes, Christmas decorations, and dusty keepsakes from a life I no longer recognized. Inside, neatly wrapped in tissue paper, was Emily's wedding dress. Ivory silk, lace trim, still holding the shape of her figure after all these years. She used to say it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever owned. She loved that dress, probably more than she ever loved me. Next to it was our wedding album. I sat on the edge of the bed flipping through the pages. Smiling faces. Post-happiness. The lies we told ourselves. Page after page, I stared at a man who looked like me but wasn't. That man had hope. That man believed in forever. I wasn't that man anymore. I carried everything into the backyard. Dress, album, printed photos, a handful of cards she'd written me over the years that I used to treasure. I poured paint thinner over the pile and stood there for a moment, match in hand. Then my phone rang. It was her. Perfect timing. "David," she said, panicked. "What the hell is going on?" I didn't answer right away. "I just spoke to Jennifer at the dealership," she continued, her voice rising. "She said you sold the Range Rover? That it's already gone." I smirked. "Oh, did I forget to mention that? You're joking, right? This is some stupid prank." I remained silent, letting the silence stretch like a noose. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice cracking now. "What is happening?" I took a deep breath, struck the match, and dropped it. Flames leapt into the air, hungry and bright. The lace caught first, curling into black petals. The album followed, its pages curling and crumbling, years of smiles turning to ash. "I'm cleaning up," I said, watching the fire dance. "Starting fresh." She screamed my name through the phone, but I ended the call. Let her scream into the void. She was good at that. I stood there for a long while, watching everything burn. I'd expected pain, maybe nostalgia, but all I felt was freedom. That night, I packed. Not just clothes, but everything that mattered. Important documents, family photos with the girls, my degrees, my designs, my backup drives. I took every piece of jewelry I'd ever bought her, every handbag, every designer coat, because I had receipts for them all. And in the eyes of the law, what's purchased by one is not owned by two. It wasn't about revenge. It was about balance. I even packed the Blu-ray player. She never watched movies anyway. Too busy with yoga and book club. By morning, my car was filled to the roof. I left behind a few boxes of her clothes, untouched. I had no desire to hurt her further. I just wanted out. I called the utilities companies, canceled the internet, the phones, the water. The lights would stay on for a few more days, just enough time for her to realize what was coming. I left the wedding ring in the kitchen drawer and took one final look around the house. It didn't feel like a home anymore. It hadn't for a long time. I stopped by my lawyer's office first. We'd already prepared the divorce papers, citing infidelity and emotional cruelty. All I needed now was her signature. From there, I drove to the flat I'd secured near Lily and Grace's university. It was small, just 2 bedrooms and a modest kitchen, but it felt like mine. I set down my bags, plugged in the kettle, and took a long, slow breath. This was the first place I'd ever lived that wasn't shared with someone who resented me. I spent that evening installing furniture, setting up my laptop, and, just for fun, watching one of my favorite old films. Alone. Peacefully. The next morning, I checked my old phone one last time. Disconnected. Just as planned. Let her panic. Let her wonder. Let her face, for once, what it feels like to be left behind. That afternoon, I mailed a small package to Jack Walker's wife. Inside was a USB drive labeled Friday Afternoons. On it, clear recordings of Jack's office rendezvous with his secretary, Olivia, along with some spicy audio proof. I sent another copy to Olivia's boyfriend, with a handwritten note. "You deserve to know. I didn't need revenge. I just wanted the truth to land where it belonged." As I dropped the packages into the mailbox, I looked up at the sky again. Still cloudless. Still calm. And for the first time in years, I felt the same. 3 days after I vanished from Emily's world, she found me. I knew she would. It was only a matter of time. She came storming into the parking lot of my new job, tires screeching, windows down, and that unmistakable fury in her eyes. Her sister's old Ford was barely holding together, and she looked like hell. Gone was the polished, curated version of Emily I once knew. Her hair was messy, her clothes wrinkled, and her eyes, bloodshot from crying or rage, or maybe both. She blocked my car before I could leave, slammed her door shut, and marched toward me like a woman possessed. "You damn coward," she screamed, trying to slap me. She missed. I didn't flinch. "Calm down," I said, keeping my voice low. "You're causing a scene." "I don't care," she spat. "You humiliated me. You wrecked everything." I looked at her, really looked. And for the first time in over 20 years, I saw her clearly. "Get in the car," I said. She hesitated, but she got in. She took one look at the interior of my new vehicle, sleek, spotless, state-of-the-art, and her expression shifted from anger to disbelief. "Nice," she muttered, bitter. "So this is where the money went." I didn't answer. I let her stew in it. We sat in silence for a moment before she spoke again, her voice trembling. "I'm broke, David. I have nothing. My cards are frozen. The utilities are getting shut off. The girls won't talk to me. What the hell did you do?" I looked out the windshield, then back at her. "I did what you never thought I could," I said. I walked away. She blinked, as if hearing it for the first time. "You left me. You left me years ago," I replied, my voice flat. "I just finally caught up." She turned toward me, the anger bubbling again. "You had no right." "No right?" I cut in. "To what?" "To take back what I built. To stop paying for your lies. To stop letting you and Henry and Max, God knows who else, make a fool out of me." She went silent. I leaned back, sighing. "You know what's funny?" I said. You thought I couldn't survive without you, that I was weak, predictable, but I've never been stronger than the day I chose myself." She laughed bitterly. "You think you're the victim?" I snapped. "But not anymore." She started crying, loud, dramatic sobs that would have broken me once. But now, they sounded hollow. "I messed up," she said. "I know that. But 20 years, David. You're really going to throw it all away?" I looked her straight in the eye. "You already did." She wiped her tears, then shifted tones, suddenly calm, calculated. "I want my half of the house," she said. "And the divorce. If that's what you want, fine. But I'm not leaving with nothing." I smiled faintly. The trap was closing, and she didn't even know it. "You're welcome to half," I said. "But the house was transferred. It's not in my name anymore." Her eyes widened. "What?" "I defaulted on the mortgage," I lied. "House is gone." "You're lying." I shrugged. "Prove it." She looked at me like she wanted to scream again, but nothing came out. "I'll take you to court," she said finally, her voice low. "You'll regret this." "No," I said. "You'll regret that." She leaned in, trying to stare me down. "You're bluffing." I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small envelope. Inside, $30,000 in cash. "You can take this," I said. "Walk away clean. Or you can drag this through the courts, lose everything, and watch the legal fees eat up whatever crumbs are left." She stared at the envelope like it was poison. "I should have never trusted you," she whispered. "No," I said coldly. "You should have never underestimated me." She yanked the envelope from my hand, muttering under her breath. Then she flung the door open and got out without another word. She didn't look back, didn't slam the door. She just disappeared. I watched her drive off, the tailpipe coughing black smoke down the road. I sat there for a long time, heart pounding, not from fear, but from relief. The war was over. I didn't win out of vengeance. I won because I refused to be her doormat one more second. The next day, I filed the official divorce papers. Grounds: adultery, cruelty, emotional abandonment. And just like that, the woman who thought I'd never leave was gone. 1 week after filing for divorce, I met Emily for the last time. The papers were ready. Everything was set. We agreed to meet at Lily and Grace's apartment, neutral ground. I arrived early, wanting to get it over with. I had already spent months, maybe years, emotionally detaching from that woman. This was just a formality now. A signature. A final nail in a coffin we both built. Emily arrived 15 minutes late. She walked in wearing a mask of makeup and desperation. Her clothes were expensive, but nothing fit right anymore. Her confidence, her posture, gone. The woman who once sauntered through life like she owned every room now moved with uncertainty, as if every step might crumble beneath her. She sat down across from me at the dining table. Lily was in the kitchen, pretending to make tea. Grace stood by the door, arms crossed. They didn't say much, but their silence was louder than any outburst. Emily opened the envelope. Her eyes scanned the divorce agreement. No alimony, no property, just the lump sum I offered her. A clean break. She hesitated. I pushed a second envelope across the table, $30,000 in cash. "It's all there," I said. She didn't touch it. Instead, she looked up at me, tears already forming. "David, are you sure about this?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. "I know I hurt you," she whispered. "But I thought maybe we could rebuild. We were together for over 2 decades. "We weren't together, Emily," I said, my voice sharp but steady. "We were just existing in the same house. You made sure of that." Her eyes flicked to the girls, searching for support, but they wouldn't give it. Not anymore. Lily cleared her throat. "Just sign it, Mom." Emily's lips quivered. "Don't you remember?" she pleaded, turning back to me. "Our wedding? Disneyland with the girls? All the good times." I did remember. But that's all they were now, memories. Pictures in a frame. Ghosts that no longer held power over me. She signed. The room was silent except for the scratch of pen on paper. When it was done, she pushed the document toward me, then stood. Her shoulders shook slightly, but she kept her back turned. "I hope you're happy," she said softly. "I am," I replied. "Finally." She paused, then walked to the door. Grace stepped aside without a word. Lily didn't even look at her. And just like that, Emily was gone. As I gathered the paperwork and slipped the cash envelope into my bag, Lily placed a hand on my shoulder. "You okay, Dad?" I looked at her and smiled. "Yeah, I think I really am." They both walked me out, and as I hugged them goodbye, Grace said, We'll see you next weekend, right? Coldplay concert. I nodded. Wouldn't miss it. That night, back at my apartment, I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat on the balcony. The city was quiet, the stars barely visible through the glow of the streetlights. But I didn't need stars to feel peace anymore. I opened my laptop and checked my emails. A new message from Robert, my boss at Sutton Hydraulics. Sales had doubled. Clients were migrating from Walker Engineering by the week. My bonus had already crossed the £30,000 mark. And the Land Rover Discovery sitting downstairs? A company gift. A thank you for saving their business. Apparently, when you stop being someone else's doormat, doors open. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. The chaos was behind me now. Sure, Emily wasn't done. I knew there'd be more attempts. Late-night calls, guilt trips, maybe even court threats. But I wasn't afraid of her anymore. I wasn't afraid of anything. I had my daughters, my dignity, my freedom. And for the first time in my life, I was choosing me. The next morning, I mailed the signed divorce papers to my attorney and confirmed the investment plans for the money I'd pulled from the house sale. I set up trusts for Lily and Grace, put funds into retirement accounts, and held on to a portion in cash, for flexibility, just in case. By Friday, I received confirmation that the house was officially sold. Emily, still holed up with her disapproving parents, now had no home, no car, and no fallback. That was her doing, not mine. That weekend, I joined Toby and Sarah for dinner. Surrounded by people who actually cared, I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. No tension in my chest, no fear in my gut, just peace. And later that night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling of my new life, I realized something. Love isn't meant to break you. Marriage isn't supposed to humiliate you. And kindness should never be mistaken for weakness. I gave Emily everything. She threw it away. But in doing so, she gave me something back. Myself. Looking back, I realized this story, my story, isn't just about betrayal or revenge. It's about rediscovery. About remembering your worth when the world, or the person you love most, makes you forget it. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Loyalty means nothing when it's one-sided. You can give your whole life to someone, sacrifice your time, your dreams, even your identity, but if they don't value it, it'll never be enough. Respect is the foundation of love. Once that crumbles, there's no house strong enough to stand. I stayed far too long out of fear. Fear of change, fear of breaking my family, fear of being alone. But staying broke me more than leaving ever did. To anyone out there, especially those who've spent decades putting others first, don't lose yourself trying to hold on to someone who let go of you a long time ago. You deserve peace. You deserve joy. And it's never too late to choose those things. I thought starting over at my age would be terrifying. And it was. But you know what? It was also the bravest thing I've ever done.